Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you are new. Today I am going to be doing another apartment hunting video in New York City. I did one last year. If you're interested in that, I'll have the link up here for you to watch. So just a little brief background about my living situation. This is now my second year living in New York City. I do live with one roommate, but we wanted to move because we wanted to look for a better location, ideally on the west side, because last year we lived on the east side, and while I personally really liked the vibe of that area, it was definitely a little hard to get to places, especially if you're going east to west. In Manhattan, it's a lot harder to go east to west as opposed to north and south. And my roommate's job did start requiring her to go into office more, and the commute to her office was a little unideal, so we wanted somewhere that was more convenient. And then we also were looking for some upgrades, hopefully. So just to lay out kind of our new criteria for our apartment search this time, we were looking for a budget of around 4.5 to 5K, and of course the location that is closer, more convenient, or at least easier commutable to my roommate's office. We wanted a doorman, a gym in the building. The lease to our first apartment ends in the end of September, so we were looking for something that would start mid to late September as well. And some nice to haves would have been laundry in unit, some really good natural sunlight. Lastly, a layout that truly works for a flex situation. As you know, New York City rent is extremely expensive, so finding a true two-bedroom in the city that fits within our budget is extremely difficult. So that does call for a one-bedroom flex situation. I also wanted to give a little bit of information on what exactly that means or can imply. But basically, a flex wall is just a fake wall or a shelf that they will put up, usually to divide the living room space in two. So depending on the layout, that would net you with a smaller living room space or none at all. And I realized that last year I got really lucky with my flex wall being basically a true wall with a proper door, so it felt very much like a real room. But I found out in this year's apartment hunt that usually most apartment buildings in New York City do require the flex wall to have at least a 12-inch gap on top, just for safety reasons. So that very much, makes the flex room much more less like a real room. They usually will be around 1 to 1.5K for the price of the wall installation. Sometimes the taking down of the wall will also require extra payment. And when you are doing your apartment hunt and you know that you will need or want a flex wall situation, be sure to ask them if that's allowed, because there are also some buildings that don't allow any flex walls. So now I wanted to go very quickly over the application process and what documents are needed. The docs that you definitely will need are a copy of your ID, a proof of employment, usually dated within 30 days, your most recent bank statements, most recent pay stubs, and in the application itself, they will usually ask you for any previous home addresses, the management companies of those previous home addresses and their contact information, as well as the information of your employer. And these applications typically do have an application fee. Some apartment buildings also will have a broker's fee. So for more specific tips, I will be jumping into that at the end of this video, so without further ado, let's jump into the actual apartment touring itself. So the very first apartment that we toured was a one-bedroom flex in Chelsea that was $4,700. It was already flexed into 2 bedrooms, which was really nice because that meant that we wouldn't have to go through the hassle of paying and scheduling the installation of the wall ourselves. And as you can see, the main bedroom also has a walk-in closet, which was really cool. But we didn't super love the kitchen or the general layout of the space, and because of the lack of sunlight, it just felt really dark and suffocating inside, so we didn't love that. This next unit that we toured was in the same apartment building, and this unit felt a lot more open and had so much more beautiful natural lighting, which we were a big fan of. But due to the layout, it would make for a very awkward flex of splitting either this awkwardly shaped living room into 2, or the agent who toured us specifically said that a lot of people with this layout had also flexed the bedroom itself, which was interesting. And this apartment unit was also way over our budget, so despite this building in general having a pretty good location and great amenities, we didn't love the interior renovation, and none of the spaces just truly worked for us. So the next apartment that we toured is actually in a building that me and my roommate have a friend who lives there, so we kind of knew what the space would look like, how it would look like with a flex wall. So we did like the layout and we liked the renovations, but we did feel that the location was a little too far west for us. This next apartment had such beautiful big windows with amazing natural sunlight, a washer dryer in unit, and we also loved how open, the kitchen layout was. We honestly really liked this place, and then so we also were able to see a second unit in the very same building. This one had a slightly different layout. It was a little smaller than the previous one, and it was still getting some work done, which is why it kind of looks like that, but it was nice. We liked that this building also has a gym, and we were seriously considering applying, but it was very much over our budget, and we also didn't love their amenities enough for it to feel worth going over budget for. For apartment number 6, we thought that this whole mirror structure inside was really cool. I've never seen anything like this. And it was a very open and nice space, but we didn't love how it was renovated, and we don't like that little peep structure in the kitchen. We were also shown a second unit in the very same building, so this was a different unit, but it looked pretty similar. And again, we didn't love how the kitchen was laid out, but we did like how the renovations on this one were done a little bit more. But in general, everything considered, we just didn't love the place. For this next apartment, the base monthly rent was actually $48.25, but it came with 1 month free, so that brings the net monthly rent down to $44.23, which was a really good price, even under budget for us slightly. And it was a really nice and large open space, and it would give us a really big living space even after adding the flex wall, which we really liked that. However, one thing was that the finishes were not as new, so that was just a slight con for us. And then we also saw a second unit in the same building. This one we liked more, and it even had a balcony, which was really cool, but honestly we don't have a huge use or purpose for the balcony, so it just made the flex wall situation a little more awkward in terms of where to put it. But we also learned that they had a really high amenity fee as well as some sewage fees, and we also didn't love the location. It was really near a very loud area of Midtown, so we thought that that would feel a little too much. They also required an immediate move-in, and granted we were touring these in the end of July, so that was way too early for us. This very last apartment, it was super open, and we really loved the big windows and the layout as well. They also had a washer dryer in unit and also a gym in the building. We liked how open the kitchen layout was, as well as the flooring and the renovations being a lot more modern than some of the other apartments that we looked at. And we also got a really good deal that would waive the amenity fee for us. That would have been, I want to say, $500. So, surprise, this last apartment is actually the one that we ended up going with and applying for. I am in here right now, as you can see. We applied to this apartment the same day that we toured, and then the day after we heard back from them that there was actually an application that for the unit we looked at that was turned in before we did, but instead that there was actually a different unit that had a similar layout. So the agent gave us the floor plan and a video of that other unit to look at, and so we actually liked that layout more, so we went with it and we got the lease a day later. Yeah, it ended up working out well. It was, right at the top of our budget, but still within budget. And the location was also really great for us, so we were really happy with the new apartment so far. And yeah, unlike last year, I will definitely be sure to do a full apartment tour right before I move out. But just to end off this video, I wanted to give some tips for the people who are a little newer to the apartment hunting, touring, applying process in New York City. It definitely is a beast of its own. But my number one tip is definitely to use StreetEasy. It is an app that has different apartment buildings, units that are for rent and for sale that you can look at. It's very easy to use their platform to schedule tours, to contact management, to contact the building. That was basically the only way that me and my roommate looked for apartments this time. And I know there are different websites, platforms, or applications you can use for touring in New York, but I just find that StreetEasy is the most convenient, and it has a lot of different things available on there. My second tip is to dedicate 1 to 2 weeks just focusing on touring. If you don't have work or if you're able to take work off, that would be ideal because I had to apartment hunt this time with work still going on, and it is really difficult and stressful trying to schedule tours on weekdays with work still happening because a lot of these units, they go out very fast. I feel like in general, all the turnover, all the rates are a lot faster for the New York City apartment hunting process, and it can be competitive. Like some buildings will have open houses one day and then at the end of the day someone applies for it and it's gone. So it's kind of like if you miss your timing there, you can miss things. My third tip is to truly go see the apartment units and buildings in person if you can. Go prepared with questions about any additional fees, about the amenities, about safety, the location, everything like that. And it really is important to see what the apartment unit looks like in person. There will be a lot of places that look super nice in photos, but sometimes in person you'll see that some of these spaces can feel a little dingy. Just be careful of that and really to go see in person so you know for a fact what you're getting into before you apply and move into somewhere. My fourth tip is to try to scope out locations if you can, especially if you're newer to New York. I know that learning the names and differences and descriptions of all the different neighborhoods and areas in New York can be a little challenging. So just try to ask, if you know anyone who's already in the city, ask them about it. You can search online. I'm sure Reddit would have a lot of information, but get a feel of what location feels right for you and fits your needs, and also be sure to look out for proximity to subway stations and things like that. And my final and last tip that I definitely learned this time around and not last year was to negotiate if you can, because we've realized that a lot of these apartment units, the price that they have is not always super fixed. Sometimes they're more flexible. For example, you could say like, oh, like this unit, we love it, but it's a little bit over our budget and we're looking at a different place that has a lower budget, but we like this one more and we would like to move in as soon as possible. Like, is that okay for the price drop? Like things like that. It's kind of like negotiating your salary, especially when you compare it to a second option that you have. But a lot of times they are very receptive to it and it can get you a lot of saved money. So definitely try that out, and the worst thing they could do is say no. So just go for it and see what comes out of it. But yeah, that is all for this video. I hope this was fun to see and that this was really helpful for you, and good luck with your apartment touring, and I will probably see you next year for another apartment touring video. Bye!